right, guys. Good morning. Cummings Cast, episode number 4. Here we go. Thank you for joining us this morning. I have Miss Yu Ada joining us from our Millersville office officially at this point.
Yes, it is.
Thank you for driving up here this morning.
I appreciate you having me.
It's great to have you. You're the bomb. All right, so tell me a little bit. How long have you been with the brokerage at this point now?
So I have been with you guys just a little over 2 years.
2 years.
I
All right.
came over in Cummings Con
Yeah,
2023.
yeah. So you're like the agent that you're technically out of Millersville now. Where did you start out of? Howard County?
Yes, I was
Yeah.
at the Columbia office. I was waiting for the Millersville office to open.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like you're one of the agents here that like just a lot of people probably don't know what office you're with because you really move around.
Yeah.
Around the town and like use the different spaces, which I love seeing. I feel like you know the staff at every location you go to.
Yes.
Like she was planning a craft night with Katie Fetishik upstairs. We're in the Perry Hall office right now, obviously. So you does a lot of great job of like networking within the office, which I love. And she's also hosted some sort of different sort of like I call them like meetups, lunch and learns kind of things. She's done a great job with reaching out and getting different groups together at different locations. It's really gotten to know a lot of people here, which I love. And I always suggest that's a great way to, have more contacts, have more relationships in the business, have more people to lean on. So I'm really proud of you that in 2 years you've like just slid right in and like become very much like a forefront person in the brokerage. So thank you for all the help that you've given me and keeping the good sort of motivation and collaboration going. So that's why I wanted to kind of get you in here. And make sure, we keep that going. So you in the business, you have been, give us 3 little minutes of like your background.
Sure. So I started in real estate back in 2016.
Where'd you grow up?
Well, I grew up in New Jersey. So I'm not from Maryland.
Right.
But I did come here in 2016 and then quickly joined a small team out of Baltimore City.
Okay.
And
as a licensed agent?
No, as a transaction coordinator, listing
get
coordinator.
Get your foundation.
Yeah, I did. I started from the basics.
And who was that with?
With R.J. Breeden.
R.J. Breeden, yes. He and I used to bartend. Back to working in the restaurant industry at the same bar in Ocean City called Shenanigans on the boardwalk.
Yeah.
We overlapped a little bit, but yes, RJ, he's a character.
Yes, he is. But
we love RJ.
We do.
Okay.
No, he's a great mentor. I learned a lot from that team and from him. I was with him for almost 6 years.
Okay.
And
wow, that's a good amount of time.
Yeah.
As a transaction coordinator the whole time?
No, so I was doing the transaction coordinating, listing coordinating, marketing, all the back end things within the team. I also even helped operate the team, but I got licensed in 2019.
So I started doing 5 years.
Yeah, so about part-time sales at that point, and then the pandemic hit. So I feel like everyone went full-time mode.
Yeah. And then you moved over to Next Step Realty, correct? Yep.
Yeah, so then I finally went over to Next Step as a full-time,
just to kind of give yourself some breathing room from being on the RJ Breeden team as a transaction coordinator and agent, right?
Right.
Like no bad blood, just ready for a change.
Exactly. Yeah. And then after that, I think within 9 months, I reached out to you and I said I'm ready to be an individual agent.
Yeah.
And do this
because you had all the background and everything, and then you saw that the team was working good. I feel like you learn it from like everywhere you go, but you were at a point where you wanted to have it all under your own brand, keep all of your money, market how you wish.
Exactly. Having full autonomy in my business, I had all the basic knowledge of how to run the business, so I was ready to just go.
So you're 5 years full time, which is still somewhat in some people's mind like rookie is still sometimes used as the word. So just not that numbers are an important barrier of where everybody's life is or whatever, but just kind of like how much business do you do each year? How many units? What's your sales volume for like the last couple of years or good years or whatever?
Yeah, so I would say on average I'm about 20 units, 7 million.
That's great.
I haven't quite broke the 10 million threshold yet,
that's a goal.
But that is a goal.
Yeah.
I'm not being from Maryland originally. I've had to build a lot of connections throughout the years organically, and I've worked really hard doing that. I've also built a lot of relationship within the military population because my husband's military, and so it's been quite the journey of doing that.
All right.
Yeah.
So I guess what has worked for you like to start out with not being from the state to focused on the transaction coordinating thing, working for another team or whatever, to doing your own thing. You knew the process, which is great. I love people that know the process. But and then like now to the marketing side, I guess where did you found successful? I guess for your lead generation. Obviously you mentioned the military thing, so you're sort of integrating with your husband's and his friends at work and their world and everything. Um, any avenues that you're doing that? Anything specifically with the military that you're doing in terms of trying to market to them?
Yeah, so I actually, well, I already got my military relocation certification, so that
Okay.
way I can kind of bring in a little bit more knowledge and open that up a little bit more through the base. So my
Sure.
plan is to go to the base and talk to the housing department and find a way of integrating
Get
myself
yourself in. Yeah.
as a preferred agent in the area.
Doing some door
Yeah.
knocking almost
Yes.
kind of thing. Yeah.
But I also really just get really involved in my community. I do live very near, like, close to Fort Meade, so I host like a Kona ice truck in the summertime, and then I introduce myself to my neighbors in that area because a lot of them are either in the military or retired. And also I've done
So
some
the Kona ice truck is like in your actual neighborhood
Yeah.
or at the military base?
it's at my community.
Gotcha. Did you get like approval from your neighborhood? I always, walking through
I
this,
haven't had
like
any issues with it.
you
They
just
seem to
is
fine
it
with it.
just pull up in front of your property and you just sort like in your front driveway
Yeah.
or sidewalk,
Yeah.
schedule it, and then you just how are you marketing it to the neighbors?
We have a Facebook group, so I just let them know that, hey, it's the first weekend of the summer where the pool's open.
Yeah.
If they want to come by,
Ah,
come
yeah,
meet,
yeah.
come meet me.
Yeah.
I've also,
So you have a community pool.
Yeah.
See, I love the creativity. Yeah,
yeah,
that's good.
I like to open up everything within my community. So even with the holiday photo session I had done last Christmas, I opened it up to my community as well to just allow my neighbors to come in, meet me, and take some photos, and at least have an idea of who I am within
Yeah,
the
yeah.
community.
All right, so holiday photos. That's another thing you just mentioned.
Yes.
So is that something you've done multiple times?
That this past December was the first time I had done it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how'd that work out?
It went really well. I got
So
to
you
meet
hired a Santa Claus, I'm assuming, or something
No,
like?
I actually
what'd you-
didn't. I kept
okay.
it. We had a
Okay, I've
professional
seen people hire
photographer.
Santa
Yeah.
Clauses. Okay, okay.
I've had. I thought about it, but we ended
Yeah,
up
that's
just
fine.
keeping it simple. Where we had a professional photographer come in. She had a beautiful backdrop.
Oh, gotcha,
And we
okay.
just had people come through, take photos with their families or themselves, and a lot of my neighbors had a really good time with that.
Gotcha. So the photographers organizing, getting their email addresses, just emailing the photos, and you had this at your house?
We had it at the clubhouse within my community.
Gotcha. Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
you're able to like block that off, rent that. They're all familiar with where to go, where
Exactly.
to park, and you had it all set up and like food and beverage kind of thing as well. Gotcha. How many people do you get to something like that?
So we had about 40 people come through.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's a lot.
So it's a good
Manageable,
amount.
but a lot.
Very much, yeah.
Yeah, a lot. That's great.
Yeah.
And then Kona Ice Truck gets a lot of activity.
Yeah, we had it for a couple hours. I had my lender come with me, and we just sat outside and just hung out. And people came through. It was a beautiful day, so anyone who was walking by, we offered them to come over, have free Kona ice.
Is this like Saturday of like Memorial Day weekend kind of
Yes.
thing? Oh, is it
Yeah.
nice? Okay, perfect. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, all right. So sort of some of your relationship building and lead generation is through events. It sounds like. Do you do other events throughout the year?
Not really, not necessarily.
Two big events.
Yeah, I do. I try to do like 1 to 2 big events throughout the year, and whether that's bringing in clients, past clients, or open up to the community, so that way I can
Yeah.
meet more people.
Have you felt like you've gotten leads from that?
I have actually.
Yeah.
I have had.
So you've been able to track leads through it. Even if you can't track leads through it, I feel like it's still like going to like doing something good for the others, sort of giving to get. It's
Exactly.
going to come back to you at some point, but you've been able to actually see some actual leads come from this type of stuff.
And like I said, just started, so I'm hoping that as I continue with consistency, then we'll get the results of more and more
Yeah.
people. But it's just really more introducing myself in a way that's not overly salesy of like, hey, I'm your realtor in this neighborhood. Like, it's more like, hey, I'd like to host some events. I'm opening
Yeah.
this up to you guys and hope to meet you guys.
Yeah.
That way.
Okay. What other sort of consistent like lead gener? Are you doing any like mailers,
So
email blasts, newsletters?
Yeah.
What else
so
are you
I
consistently
do,
sort
I
of?
do drip campaigns mostly with, open house leads or leads that are more on the colder side. But I also have drip campaigns with, past clients because they eventually might become repeat clients, and that's,
Right.
really.
And your drip campaigns are through email?
Yes.
Like newsletter sort of based?
No, it's
or
just-
just like a written email that you write out every month and send out to people?
Yeah,
or-
so I have some that I know that are like within like a 3-month range, 6-month range kind of drip campaign where,
Mm-hmm.
or even if it's like a house anniversary, just like reaching out to them every year, birthdays, just just.
So you're tracking a lot of
reminders.
different different aspects of your clients' lives.
Yes,
With
I try to,
their
yeah.
house anniversary, birthdays, and how are you tracking all that stuff? What do you use a program, spreadsheet?
Yes. So I used to use a spreadsheet and my calendar. That was my always go-to ways of just organizing my life. But
Yeah.
I have Lofty, which is a
Lofty,
pretty I think Tim mentioned that he uses that
Oh yeah,
last
Tim
yeah.
Markland uses Lawfully as well.
Yeah, so it's a
It's a
pretty automated.
robust
Yeah,
kind of CRM
hmm
website all in one.
it is.
About $400 or $500 a month. I feel like it's a
It
little.
is
It's
pricey,
pricey.
but
Yeah.
it is very automated. It's great when you go to open houses. It actually creates a QR code with sign-ins so that anyone could just scan in, and then when they drop in their information, it goes right into my database and
Yeah.
then tags them from that open house. So it makes things a lot easier in that
Gotcha.
way.
Yeah. Are you pretty techie, or were you able to just figure this out without?
So actually, RJ used Lofty. It was Chime
Okay,
back
it's called
then.
Chime. I do
So
recall
it
that.
was
Yep.
just something that I was familiar with. I had played around with Follow Up Boss, which I know a lot of people use as well. So it was just more something I wanted to. I wanted to do something that I knew that if I scaled my business, I already had systems in place
Yeah.
that can
Yeah. I'm
hold
a
on to
big
that.
proponent of CRMs. I
Yeah.
love the organization that they provide, and everything in one place to kind of follow people through the whole pipeline, pre-sale through sale, post-sale. Like it's just all sort of stays connected together. So I keep trying to push more people into CRMs. But again, I don't like to control. So I sort of say, all right, if you got your system, you got your system. And I know many successful people that are not into them, but it's good to hear that, different perspective. I've had a couple other people and they're like, no, I'm not using CRM. I'm like, all right, well, there goes that
I
conversation.
still will say this that I do use like Google spreadsheets and my
Uh-huh.
calendar a lot.
Yeah.
In addition to it, just because
Yeah.
that's just how I
Yeah.
can focus and organize my thoughts.
Yeah, I do too. Sometimes I'm just like, I'm just going to put it right on my Outlook calendar, like to follow up with this person this day instead of my CRMs because I just know it'll hit my phone and everything. But yeah, I mean, I love my CRM, but yeah, I do still have to keep like a hand paper list each day I work off of like
Right.
the most important things I gotta get done each day. So anything that you've been doing that like was a bomb, that was like a failure that you tried in terms of like marketing, you put a bunch of money towards something, you're like, that did not go well?
I did. In a way, I would say it wasn't a
I always feel
failure,
like
but
you
it kind of
learn
feels
from
like
your
a failure.
failures, you don't want to have too many failures though. It's like, it's kind of like the 80-20 rule. You don't
is.
want more than like 20% failures and you want
Right.
80% successes.
Yeah, so I did do the Zillow leads for a good half a year.
Okay.
Just tried it once.
How much were you spending each month?
I was spending at least 600, and then I
Okay.
split that
A
with
little
someone
lender
else. Yeah,
kind of
and
thing. Yep.
at first, I think what happened was we weren't really focusing on the right zip codes. And then once I started honing in on the Severn zip code, it made it a lot easier for me to convert the leads because I was able to say, hey, I live in Severn.
Sure.
I know the area very well. And I was able to connect with some of those leads a little bit better. So I realized once I adjusted it a little bit better, then the conversion was a lot
was
better.
better.
So it was a little bit of a failure, but I made the adjustment as quickly as I could to make it.
Are you
hopefully
still
more successful.
doing that, or you
I
moved
don't
on?
anymore just because I really do want to focus more on organic, genuine connections.
Yeah.
And I think that's really most of my business. It's SOIs and just through people I've met. I know people talking about networking, and I do go to networking events, but not necessarily with other agents. I focused on, especially when I was living in the city, I joined what's called the Junior League of Baltimore, which is a nonprofit organization within the city, and it was just all females, and I was able to meet a lot of different people through that organization and being involved. I was on a committee. I would end up becoming committee chair, and just being so involved in that organization allowed me to also make connections with some of the other members who end up buying houses from me.
Yeah.
And so that was really nice.
So it ended up working. All the time and effort in this sort of volunteer role
Right.
ended up making relationships that people were like, gave back to you. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. It's a lot of risk in this business. I mean, we
It is.
we don't have a salary, we don't have health insurance, we don't have 401k, we don't have a lot of different things. And you have to go out and you do things and you don't really know if it's going to work out.
Right.
But I always kind of take the thing, it's like, well, if you don't do anything, nothing's going to work out.
Yeah.
If you don't pick up the phone, if you don't go do anything, then absolutely nothing's going to happen because no one just calls a real estate agent out of the blue and says, oh, heard you were licensed.
Right.
You really have to like go out and do all these things and hope that the reward pays off. And then you have to sort of see what works and what doesn't work. That's why I kind of like the failures is like, putting a lot of time into certain things does sometimes work and sometimes doesn't. So that's great to see that like the efforts that you've put in have paid off and shown things. That's great. Anything like new on the horizon for your business that you're like working on this year?
I have been working on the last 6 months. My husband and I created, or mostly me, but he's been helping a property management company. And that's like an added service for me, for my clients, especially because I do work so much with military families that
Yeah.
who end up PCSing after like 2 or 3 years.
Relocating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So some of them want to hold on to those
Property.
properties. And so I've been actually doing some property management on that end and as like an added service to
Yes.
some clients. So started doing that. And, every year my husband and I talk about different business plans, and we ourselves own a few investment properties.
Yes.
So that's all, we're constantly talking about expanding that portfolio.
Where are the investment properties located?
Most of them are in the city. We
Okay.
have acquired two in Anne Arundel County.
Okay.
So we're slowly expanding.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always been a big proponent of like, while you're doing your regular clients and everything, if you see a deal, it's like kind of like, having access to the multiple lists is like, understanding like the stock market really well and being like a trader. If you see an angle for a deal, it's like we have that opportunity. I mean, one person told me when I first got into business, I got opened up the multiple list for the first time. They're like, there's millions of dollars to be made here with this information,
Right.
in terms of like the comps and the tax record and just, finding, absentee owners and all these different things. And I took that to heart when I first got started, and I was, buying properties and rental properties, and since, moved things around and sold and focused more on the offices and stuff. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like, again, not having that retirement 401k, like, now, to all of you guys, really, especially the younger generation, is like get the properties now so that when you're hitting retirement age or your kids are hitting college and maybe things are tight, you have properties that are free and clear. And if you need to, sort of hack one off to pay for college, the property will be hopefully completely paid off free and clear if you start early. And if things are going well, you can just continue it and hopefully build a portfolio and have like a nice passive income for retirement, so you're not stressing about doing deals all the way through until you get Social Security or whatever we have down the road. So yeah, I think that's really smart of you to offset, like save your income. It's hard now because it's like you're making the money, and then you're like you pay taxes on it, and then you have to then put it into a property, put the down payment down, do renovations, and it's like, man, I could use that for vacation or whatever, buy a beach house and, a new car,
Yeah.
This. But, if you, take it and invest it now in properties long term, like you are going to be less stressed later down the road. That's kind of like the approach I've taken, is like I can have a hopefully like nice, enjoyable retirement kind of situation.
Exactly. And I think that's the ultimate goal for anyone, long-term planning and just, seeking out the
I mean, that's
goal at the end.
Yeah, I mean, that's real. I mean, again, like, I'd put a little bit of money in safe sort of, things that in the stock market world that I don't think, very conservative, but I feel like I know the properties, I know the rents. I'm definitely kind of like try to get like the A-list locations, and that will always sort of hold steady.
Yeah.
Is always like sort of my goal, or that wasn't initially my plan, but I learned the hard way from buying some properties with some tough tenants and situations and stuff to sort of go for the more A-class areas or whatever. Where it's just more stable for tenants and need, closer to grocery stores, like convenience, things like that. Well, that's really good. I'm happy to hear you doing that. Are you using artificial intelligence for stuff?
So I'm not as submerged in like ChatGPT quite yet. Like
Okay.
I've used it a few times and not ready to use it for listing remarks because you can really tell the difference. But I know that you could customize it.
Yeah.
But I have been using it for Canva. I do like marketing. I really enjoy it. So
All right, and so with Canva, you create your own, like, basically mainly social media posts?
Yes.
Do you use Canva for anything else?
I mean, I've done it for a lot of like even personal things, creating, invitations or baby showers, all that stuff.
Right.
But
Canva's
most
mainly
of it
focused for graphic.
Correct.
Creating
Yeah.
graphics
and so I've done.
So now they have they've brought an AI integration into Canva now.
Yeah, so you could kind of like ChatGPT, you ask it to create a graphic using certain words, or hey, I want a house on this hill and with this background, and they'll create images for you, and you can always try to make the customization, but you could also change it or integrate it into videos within Canva as well. So I started playing around with it. They just released it last year, so I keep trying to go on some of the webinars and learn a little bit more about it.
So can you upload, say you have just listed properties, can you upload the photo and say please put wording on here
Yeah.
that makes it look good. And so instead of you trying to figure out all the fonts, it just gives you,
Right.
does it give you multiple options?
It
Or
does. It does give you multiple options, and
so you
then
literally
it's
just type in, I want this in there, and it just makes it look pretty, and then you can
yeah,
pick it and
and
download
then
it.
exactly, and then you can still edit it afterwards. So like if maybe you don't like the color of it, but you like the font that they use, then you can make the adjustments if needed. But I think they're really putting AI into everything to make things a lot easier and more efficient.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
it is very time consuming with marketing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I like that you do it yourself because you can customize it
Hmm.
to sort of set your own brand. It's not just like that stock sort of
Right.
like we have like a Cam account. We have like some set options, but
Hmm.
like you have your own, so you can kind of change it as you go or as different fonts become more popular
Hmm.
and everything. So, gotcha. The AI is into Canva now too.
It is.
Yeah.
It's in everything.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right. Where else are you doing to like your clients though? I mean, customer service wise, I mean, having that whole background of like the admin side background that you started in terms of like, working through the process. Are you working with transaction coordinators, managing yourself? Like, are you like talk to your clients about how you want to communicate with them? Like, I mean, how's the process go for between you and your clients?
Yeah. I mean, I do all my admin work, so all the contracts, all the paperwork, I do just because I'm so used to it. I used to manage 20 files at a
Sure,
time,
sure.
so doing my own paperwork has been great. But it is sometimes nice to be able to have that help. But I
Right.
also
So
use
you're working on the Canva, you're doing
yeah.
you're doing your marketing, you're doing your relationship building, you're doing your transaction management. So you're really like to have the control of like how things are going to go for your
Yeah.
clients.
I do,
Yeah,
and
that's
I'm
great.
very involved in that way. And I also have open communication with my clients, so that if they ever need to reach me, I'm pretty,
Available.
available for them. I understand that people have to scale and learn how to let go and let, other
Are
resources
there not
help.
a lot of boundaries in your world right now still?
I've gotten a lot better about that, especially in
Okay.
the last couple of years, to kind of say, hey, I'm not going to be available at 10 p.m. to have,
Yeah.
conversation. I understand some families, their kids don't even go to bed till a certain time, and they won't be available to speak till after that. So I try to make accommodations as needed, but
Yeah.
I also have to set
I know. I
boundaries.
mean, in my early years,
Yeah.
there was no
Yeah.
boundaries. With my clients, with the brokerage, and then as
Hmm.
I got older, I keep getting more tired. I feel like, but
Right.
I've set more boundaries over time, and it helps keep me. That I feel like having the boundaries will keep it so that you can longevity. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? But I fully understand in the beginning. It's like you're sleeping on the floor, whatever you got to
Yeah.
do to like
To
make it work. Yeah, I mean,
Exactly.
I'd
It
be
is a grind. I mean,
yeah.
and you have to, especially when you begin.
Yeah.
A lot of it is a lot of work, perseverance. You're going to be rejected a lot.
Yeah. How are you with conflict resolution? Do you get a lot of conflict that you have to
Yeah,
resolve?
and I think with my
That's
background,
that's
it
one of the
is.
hard parts of this business is the conflict resolution. I mean,
It
I've had
is.
people get out just because they're like, one, I'm talking to somebody at 10 o'clock at night, but they're also, upset about something, and you're like, there's sleepless nights in this industry because you're
Yeah.
like you feel for like the situation, and sometimes you can't even fix the situation. What it's not your fault, but like
Exactly.
they're upset and you can't like. So yeah, so conflict resolution, boundaries. Give me a little bit of that, I
Yeah,
guess.
no, I mean, so before working in real estate, I actually worked in physical therapy, so I worked with a lot of clients and patients, and really kind of had to listen to a lot of people's problems and just talk through things. And so I think that in combination with having my TC and TC background with that
Yeah,
small team, I was always constantly talking to clients, lenders, title company. There's always issues going on that I had to like really work through. So that helped me prepare for talking to clients and dealing with those issues and really finding a way of balancing out, respecting and empathizing with them,
yeah,
but also setting up proper expectations and letting them know, hey, sometimes, we can't do certain things or we can't go about certain things in certain ways. And so we're trying, let's do something that we can all come to like a common goal that makes
yeah.
everyone happy,
Seems
but
like you
still
have
advocating for my clients.
yeah.
But
Seems like you have a good
yeah,
approach on it. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
it
it's
is.
you definitely learn like you have to be willing to have the hard conversations
Yeah.
and unfortunately upset or disappoint people or lay out the truths. I mean, like that's our role is to not sugarcoat things.
Right.
Obviously delivery and empathy and all that is really what like helps
really makes a
us and
difference.
keeps deals together,
And the thing
but
is-
also within that empathy of like honesty and sorry
Yeah.
to cut you off.
No, but I was saying, like, also the thing is, like, these clients, hired us, trust us, and we're there to be on their side and, and hopefully guide them to the end. And I hope that they hired me because they trust what my advice is going to lead them to something that they're going to want at the end as well. So
Yeah.
that's really,
Yeah, and when you get there, it's nice that
Yes.
when it's done, they're like, all right, it all worked out. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
If we didn't have, I feel like a lot of times people are like, if we didn't have you, we probably wouldn't get there because they
But it's
would
also like-
sabotage themselves over
Yeah.
their own emotions and frustrations.
exactly. And also
You know what
it's
I
the
mean?
fact that we also have relationship with other agents too, and we built some of those relationships over the last few years of being in
Yeah.
the business, and so it's really learning to work with each other on it.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna wrap up here because we're right at about 20 minutes. But like
Right.
inspirational wise, like motivation, like how do you keep yourself motivated to get up and grind every day, like
Yeah.
this world that we have? Because it's easy to get distracted.
It is. It really is. I have really set myself to surround myself with people, agents that are, really hardworking, in alignment with, just work ethic like I do. It
Yeah.
helps me kind of keep that momentum
Going,
Yeah, it
knowing
really
that they're
does.
like out hustling,
Yeah,
finding deals,
which is-
meeting with people, having coffee meetings,
Yeah.
going to inspection, meeting an appraiser. Like if so and so is doing something today, I need to make sure I'm doing something for my business today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we were saying earlier today. Like, I have this, motivation to meet a lot of agents, and I have since coming over to Cummings, but I've always done it. And I like to meet with agents who's been in the business for a long time. They've been in it and know a lot, and it's really good insight to learn what they went through and how they overcome, the ups and downs of real
Yeah.
estate. And so being around other people has been very helpful, and that's my way of like getting motivated, as well as like I also read some books, not necessarily just real estate focused, but more of the psychological aspects of people and how grit and perseverance allow them to become successful, not just talent.
Gotcha.
So, because I feel like the sales role is really, some people are like, oh, you could be salesy and like be successful, but it's also learning how to push through obstacles and
Yeah.
some transactions are going to be really hard and tough, and others will be smooth, but it's all a balance.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is very insightful. I really appreciate everything. You guys, if you want to reach out to you, this will be coming out next week or so. And any questions for her, please shoot them in the comments.
Great.
I really appreciate your
Thank
time.
you.
Thank you. Episode
Appreciate it.
4
Woo.
in the books.
Yeah.
All right.